Hey everyone, welcome back to Corporate Decoder, the place where we turn confusing corporate reports into something you can actually understand. Today we're diving into Bladex, a Latin American trade finance bank. And get this, their annual report is so jammed with jargon and numbers you'll feel like you need a financial translator. Lucky for you, you have me. I'm ready to decode this report and see if this bank is soaring or sinking. So what's the story? Well, Bladex just dropped its annual report and the top line is this. They made more money but are facing a world of risks, from political tensions to cyber attacks. Let's break it down. First off, a quick intro. Bladex is a multinational bank that focuses on trade finance in Latin America. Their stock, Class E to be exact, trades on the New York Stock Exchange under the ticker BLX. As of the end of 2024, they had about 28.7 million shares of that Class E stock floating around. Alright, so let's scroll through this dense SEC report together and find out what is going on. Now, before we get too deep, a word of caution. This report is full of forward-looking statements, basically guesses about the future. The bank uses words like believe, expect, and anticipate. But remember, these are just predictions, not guarantees. So take everything with a grain of salt. There are many factors that affect the geopolitical stability of Latin America, and Bladex doesn't control most of it. We will try to stay in the raw numbers to get an objective view of this company. So let's get going. One of the biggest warnings, things outside their control could really mess with their business. We are talking global economics, geopolitical problems, conflicts around the world, and of course in the Panama Canal, their backyard, as well as trade and changes in government rules. Remember that 2024 was a good year and that might change. If international trade reduces because of anything, the bank might be in trouble. We have to keep that in mind. Another biggie is the loans they make. The bank needs to estimate how many loans will go bad and make an allowance for these losses, but these are just guesses and can be wrong. If they underestimate and more loans go bad than expected, Bladex is in trouble. If they overestimate, however, that means their profit will be lower and that investors are missing out. Let's see what the raw numbers say. Also, the whole financial industry is connected. If one big bank defaults, it could cause a domino effect, hurting Bladex too. So watch out for market instability in general. Alright, now let's scroll over to the actual numbers and see if Bladex really did well. Alright, profit for 2024 totaled $205.9 million, which translates to $5.66 per share. Now that might sound great, but let's compare it to the $166.2 million or $4.55 per share they made in 2023. So yes, profits are up, but is it all sunshine and roses? How exactly did this happen? Their net interest income, the profit they make from lending, increased, mostly because they are charging higher interest rates and that they had more lending. This means Bladex can squeeze out more money from customers. Also, their total other income increased, meaning they are charging a lot in fees for things like letters of credit. These mean that people in Latin America rely on Bladex for trade financing, but those fees also add up for the businesses who need the service. There is one other side of the equation here. Bladex is a large accelerated filer, which means they also need to provide extra data about market risk. This is an interesting trend for the company. It basically means their CFO has extra things to do when it comes to compliance. So let's scroll down to it. As any bank, Bladex is exposed to interest rate risk. It also does not help the fact that much of Latin America is based on commodities, which is very unstable right now with the world's events. The board thinks a major risk to the company is talent. They emphasize how they need to attract and retain the right people to build their careers in Latin America. Finding the right people might be getting harder. A lot of finance talent wants to be in the USA. This is a big risk that they need to address. Okay, a lot of important high-level details out of the way. The text of the filing also contains a lot of information, but we can only cover so much in this video. If you are an investor, I highly advise you to read thoroughly what are a few of the notable risks they mention. They admit that defaults from even one bank can hurt Bladex, which means there is a systemic risk if the area has a crisis. We have to keep that in mind. Bladex needs to be liquid to operate, and if they are not liquid, they could have problems with financial obligations. This might require extra care when considering a bank like this. Panama, where the company is based, is also on watch from certain international organizations as being too friendly for money laundering. If Panama gets a bad reputation, it could mean more regulations and costs for Bladex. They also use instruments and strategies to hedge their exposures, but these may not be as effective as they hope, which could cause unanticipated losses. The code of ethics is how a company tries to do the right thing. One of the most interesting parts is how a board member is required to obtain approval from the audit committee before getting involved in a situation that could result in actual or apparent conflicts of interest. It means everything has to be transparent, and in order to follow through on this, there need to be a good relationship between different audit groups. Sanctions, requirements, or trade embargoes could also be a problem. The US government is going crazy with sanctions, and that makes trade difficult, especially for Latin American countries. This is why geopolitical risks are very high. Finally, they mention governments, regulators, and shareholders increasing scrutiny on ESG-related issues. If they get this wrong, it could cause more risk for the business. So what's Bladex's game plan for the future? They plan to keep doing what they are doing, such as making loans and providing financial products, continue to grow and be more effective. All very nice things, but you have to prove it. There is one key part, and that is technology. They want to scale with better tech, so to do more business with the same resources, so they will launch a finance platform in the second half of 2025 for this. All in all, after checking their financials, Bladex is managing to squeeze a little more profit by growing their loan portfolio and charging some higher fees. Now, to be honest, that is nothing to get excited about, and not sure what all the fuss is about. They do not seem to be innovating and just doing the same things as before, and the board is mostly emphasizing geopolitical risks, things out of their control. If I were to make an investment, this is not the kind of company that has an amazing vision for the future. So what's the verdict? Should you invest? Well, that's up to you. Just remember, do your homework, consider the risks, and don't get blinded by the fancy finance words. Thanks for watching. Hit that like button and subscribe for more corporate decodings, and don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments below.